What's happening, guys, and welcome back to my non-spoiler review for the Transformers Rise of the Beast movie. We've been anticipating the release of this film for 5 years, since the 2018 Bumblebee movie. I am absolutely ecstatic to be able to give you guys a spoiler-free review and hopefully hype you up before you go and check the movie out for yourselves. Now, before we go any further, first of all, an absolute enormous thank you to Paramount UK for inviting me along to the European premiere of Transformers Rise of the Beast here in London. It was absolutely incredible. I was able to walk the red carpet, meet the stars of the show, watch the movie. The vibe was absolutely incredible. So yeah, super thanks to them. Without them, this early review would not be possible. So thank you so much. So I'm going to kickstart this review off on a massive high note. Personally, I think this to be the best live action Transformers movie that we've seen since Transformers Dark of the Moon. It absolutely decimates Transformers 4, annihilates Transformers The Last Night, and dare I say is better than Bumblebee. Now, Bumblebee was a very good movie from a storytelling perspective, but when you think of a Transformers movie, you think of an absolute enormous summer blockbuster, much like we saw from Dark of the Moon, Revenge of the Fallen, and the first movie, and Rise of the Beasts is definitely a return to form. This is not a streaming movie by any stretch of the imagination. You have to watch this on the biggest screen possible. We've got Maximals, we've got Autobots, Terrorcons, and Unicrcon. You have to watch Unicrcon on the largest screen. He's absolutely insane. But yeah, definitely massive movie, return to form, awesome. Now, as we get stuck into the plot of the film, very straightforward, very easy to follow. I will say here and there a little predictable. It would have been cool to have a few turns and twists, but considering how convoluted the past Transformers movies were, I completely understand as to why they wanted to streamline the formula a little bit, kind of stick to what we saw in the first movie where there's one MacGuffin and the good guys and the bad guys are after it, and that's basically the essence of this movie. The Terrorcons, the Maximals, and the Autobots are after this transwarp key, as I'm sure you guys would have been able to gather now already from some of the trailers and teaser trailers. Would have been cool maybe had they swapped that transwarp key out for the golden disc. Personally, I think that would have made a little more sense, especially considering they're introducing Beast Wars characters, but do you know what? Transwarp key served its purpose. It was absolutely fine. Now we're going to talk very quickly about human characters. Personally, I think probably the best human characters we've had in a Transformers movie. They actually contributed to not only the storyline, but to the final battle. They are actually fighting alongside the Autobots and the Maximals, which I just thought was such a breath of fresh air, because don't get me wrong, I love the Michael Bay movies. I thought Sam Witwicky, Megan Fox, you know, Rosie's character who was called Carly, they were all absolutely fantastic, but they were running around screaming, Optimus, Optimus, never really actually, you know, got hands-on with weapons, besides Sam a little bit with that kind of machine that Q gave him and he uses it to take off Starscream's eye, but that's literally it. The humans in this movie, 1,000 times better. They do have some kind of backstory, you know, it's not really expanded on too much in the case of Elena's character, who is played by Dominique Fishback, but in the case of Noah, who is played by Anthony Ramos, absolutely, you know, the story was definitely a big kind of drive throughout the third act, so yeah, that was absolutely awesome. And once we're on the topic of humans, probably, I'd say personally, the most Transformers-centric movie we have ever had. The humans are on screen for maybe a little too much in the first act for around 15 to 20 minutes. After that, there is a Transformer on screen every single shot. You've got Mirage, the Autobots, the Maximals, the Terrorcons. They are literally in it throughout the entire movie, which is absolutely fantastic. And the opening sequence, incredible. What a way to kickstart what is hopefully the first in a brand new trilogy. You guys are absolutely going to love the first kind of opening segment just before you get the of the Transformers logo. It was insanely good. Now we're done with the human characters, let's discuss the actual Transformers. So we're going to start things off with the good guys, the Autobots. So we see Optimus Prime back on the screen, back in full force after, you know, he had kind of a cameo in Bumblebee. Awesome to see him back. I thought his design looked 1,000 times better on the big screen in the movie than how some of the rough CG may have looked in some of the initial trailers. You know, the CG for the most part is very polished. There may be a few parts, especially where Prime kind of gets rid of the mouthpiece and you can just see his lips moving, which look a little strange. But for the most part, I thought he looked fantastic. In terms of his character, personally, it was a little bit of a contrast to what we saw in Bumblebee, because as you guys recall, we saw him absolutely slaying the Decepticons in the Bumblebee movie, especially in that Cybertron flashback sequence. There are quite a few events that occur in the movie where you think Prime is a little weak, you know, is he really worthy of being a Prime? But towards the end of the movie, I think that whole kind of arc benefits him, and let's just say this, he does have a few qualities which to me were super sick to see, because they kind of throw me back to the Michael Bay movies. But I don't know if everybody's really going to be happy with a few of the things he says, especially when he's in battle, because he is still that savage warrior that we saw from Revenge of the Fallen, that we saw from Dark of the Moon. But yeah, you know, they definitely do expand upon his character, which I thought was pretty good as the movie progresses. Now, as we get stuck into Bumblebee, massively sidelined. Probably a little too much because, you know, we went from having him center point in the Solo movie to barely seeing him here in this film. You know, you would think that he would be kind of the point of contact between the humans and the Autobots because Prime and the rest of the Autobots are not too keen on the humans. You know, they want to get back to Cybertron. They don't want to hang around. But instead, Mirage is kind of that human-centric character. I thought, you know, that was a little discombobulating. They really should have used Bumblebee, but Mirage was an amazing character, absolutely fantastic. I thought probably one of the most charismatic Autobots we have ever had on screen. Pete Davidson absolutely crushed it, and not to mention, he transforms into a sick Porsche, which caused for some of the best action sequences in the entire movie, so he was wicked. In terms of RC, I think the best live action movie version of herself. Not only did she look fantastic, but whenever she was on screen, she was awesome. You know, they kind of blended what we saw from G1 with Transformers Prime RC. Absolutely fantastic. My only critique would be that she wasn't in the movie, nowhere near as much. And talking of barely no screen time, we don't really see Wheeljack that much. You know, he does show up kind of, I'd say, towards the end of the second act, early third act. And in terms of his design, I'm sorry to say, guys, it is not explained at all why he looks like that or why he sounds so different when in comparison to Bumblebee. So that was a little bit of a shame. You know, I was hoping maybe they'd go into a bit of a backstory, but unfortunately they did not. But personally, you know, I didn't find it to be too distracting. From all of the various different continuity areas that we saw in the Michael Bay movies, this was just absolutely minute in comparison. And I think that pretty much wraps up for the core Autobots. You know, Stratosphere is there, but as I'm sure you guys would have guessed, he's literally there to take the Autobots from point A to point B, which is obviously from Brooklyn to Peru, where the final battle goes down. Now we're going to talk Maximals because they are the big new introduction into the live action movie, and to be fair, probably this film's biggest selling point. I first of all want to start off and say, when it was announced that Maximals, you know, Beast Wars characters were going to be injected into live action, I wasn't sold. But this movie, hands down, makes me hope they go ahead and give us a full out Beast Wars live action movie because, my goodness me, Optimus Primal is the man. He was so sick. Probably the biggest standout leader out of the entire movie. I'd say he actually overshadowed Optimus Prime on quite a few occasions. He was awesome. Whenever he was on screen, he absolutely dominated it, you know, not only because he's a massive character, but the voice acting by Ron Perlman, absolutely chef's kiss in terms of casting. He was incredible. Airraiser as well, flawless Maximal, absolutely fantastic. Primal and Airraiser, definitely the biggest standouts for the Maximals. She was in it, I'd say, probably a little more than Primal, had some terrific action sequences, great story as well, that's all I'll say. But trust me, guys, you are in for a treat with Airraiser. And then I'm sorry to say, but Cheetah and Rhinox are barely on screen. They don't really do much at all. Cheetah has a few very forgettable lines. Nothing that, you know, would really stand out. And Rhinox, I don't think, spoke at all. And we don't really get a great glimpse of the Maximals at all, not even Primal, in their robot modes. It's kind of very quick in the way they transform, and then they're just back in beast mode. But, you know, it's not a bad thing. Personally, I think their beast modes look a little better than their bot modes on the big screen anyway. But now we have to talk about the Terrorcons. And going into the movie, the Terrorcons were the characters that I was the most excited to see. Because unfortunately, with some of the Michael Bay movies, besides Lockdown, the villains have not been very strong at all. The villains in this movie were terrific, especially Scourge. You know, he is sinister. He is scary. The way they shot him was completely different to any of the other Transformers movies. You know, the intro, the opening scene, I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys, but it's probably some of the most scariest stuff I've seen in terms of a villain reveal of all time. He looked incredible. He was scary, formidable. The voice acting was decent. I wouldn't say it was the best in the world, but it was pretty cool. He's an absolute menace. Awesome, awesome character. Definitely lived up to the hype in my opinion. Battletrap and Nightbird, they did some cool stuff, but much like Cheetah and Rhinox, I don't think they're in the movie nowhere near as much. They're basically just on screen with Scourge to make the backdrop kind of look a little more interesting. They don't really do much, to be honest, besides, you know, a few kind of mace swings, a few kind of sword slashes, and that's pretty much it. They don't really contribute much to the movie, which is a little bit of a shame. And then as we begin to kind of wrap up characters, of course we have to talk about Unicrcon, because he is definitely one of the biggest standout moments from that most recent trailer. And I'm going to say this, his presence is definitely felt in the movie. You do see him on quite a few occasions. That's as far as I'll go in regards to that. But there is kind of a backstory that is hinted at in both regards to Unicrcon and Scourge, which is not really touched upon. So I do think this movie is kind of a massive setup as to what we could potentially see going forward for the future of live action movies. So I sure hope this film does well at the box office, because if they do expand on those characters and, you know, we kind of get a bit more backstory about Unicrcon, it's going to be absolutely incredible. But yeah, whenever he's on screen, it's absolutely fantastic. fantastic. If you're a fan of the 86 movie, then you're in for a treat, especially again throughout some of those wicked action sequences. And I almost dropped a spoiler, so I think I'm going to stop talking about Unicrcon for now. And then as the movie ends to a close, I will say there were a few pacing issues in regards to the story, but nothing too distracting. The kind of final sequence we get out of the movie, I think is going to be a 50-50 split in terms of whether people hate it or like it. Personally for me, I'm not too fussed with what the end of the movie was. You know, it could go either way for me, and I wouldn't really care if they ever touched upon it again, or if they did. All I'll say is that if they do decide to go along with the idea, it's going to be very risky, very bold, and if they don't handle it well, then it may not be great for the future Transformers movies, and that's all I'll say. You know, once you guys check out the movie for yourselves, come back to this video, let me know what you thought down in the comment section below in regards to that whole kind of tease for potential setup in next movies. And that pretty much wraps up my review for Transformers Rise of the Beast. So overall, solid story, could have had a few more twists and turns, wicked characters for the most part. You know, you have to bear in mind, it has been 5 years since the Bumblebee movie, so I guess in a way, this is kind of being treated as the first in what will hopefully be a brand new generation of Transformers. So I guess that's why some of the characters such as Optimus Prime don't feel nowhere near as fleshed out as what we've seen from previous movies. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to as to what the future has in store for us. Base Wars characters, absolute 10 out of 10. Destroyed the Dinobots, in my opinion, that we saw from Transformers Age of Extinction. In particular, Optimus Primal and Air Razor, two massive standouts. And as I said, best villains, I'd say, since Lockdown, and Scourge may even be a little better than Lockdown. So super excited for the future of Transformers. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm going to give it out of 10. I'd say a solid 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10. I was incredibly impressed by Transformers Rise of the Beast. It turned out to be a lot better than what I was expecting, and I had incredibly high hopes. You know, I left the theatre super happy, and its rewatchability factor is insanely high. You know, I want to check it out again. I want to go and watch it in 4DX. I think it'd be awesome to kind of be in a gaming chair sort of thing and be rattled around as, you know, Unicrcon's coming around. You know, it would just be super cool. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and until my next video, I will see you then. Thanks for watching.
Stephen Capel Jr., Anthony Ramos, Dominique Fishback, Toby Weegley, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, Mark Loradian, and Jacob Banks. That's it. The flyest cast and crew to date. Yes, my people. Stephen, take it away. Introduce this film for us. We'd love to hear from you.
I feel like I've been introducing this film a lot. I think I'm gonna let you guys hear from somebody special on the team, Anthony Ramos.
Yo, what's good, London? Hello, thanks for having us. We're very excited to be here. We worked on this movie. We gave it our blood, sweat, tears, hard work. We gave our souls, but we took them back because you need your soul to stay alive, because otherwise we'd be dead. That's very dark. Anyway, look. We love y'all, man. 2.5 years it took Steven and everybody, all of us, to make this movie. This cast is phenomenal. Wait till y'all see these Transformers, the VFX team. Shout out to the producers. Thank you, Paramount. Thank you, everybody. But Steven, our fearless leader, man, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for putting us all in this movie. And we hope that every single person in here has the best time you've ever had in a movie theater, and that you feel seen, and that you just tell all your friends about it. So we love y'all, man. Enjoy Transformers Rise of the Beast.